I've recorded every single Mythic Plus key that I've attempted in Season 1 of The War Within, and in this series I'm going to cover the highs and lows of each dungeon on my way to pushing to the 0.1% title. In the second episode we ended up at 2,661 Mythic Plus score, so let's get ourselves straight into a plus 11 City of Threads. In this key we had a Guardian Druid, which I think this might be maybe the first bear that we played with. He had his cooldowns up just before the first boss, so he actually ends up out DP. He was pumping. The bio-vegan beef was pumping. So, yeah, we didn't have much damage for this pack right here. Moving on then, the first boss went well. I ended up topping the DPS on that. I had to reclaim my throne, and then we move on to the Eye of the Queen gouging. And right here, I've seen this happen a few too many times in keys recently. As you can see, I'm walking on my crab mount. I don't know if it's because it's a crab mount and it's like running sideways, so maybe the model is actually fatter than it appears. But ain't no way I'm in that circle and I get web wrapped and sent back to the start. So that was a little tilter. Moving on to NX and VX then, considering we're not Frost, so we don't have that incredible 2-target cleave. We're on Arcane here, but we pumped out some super nice damage. I think I played my rotation really, really well on this fight. And towards the end of the fight as well, I pulled off a nice mass barrier. It could have been a little bit quicker and saved the Chamois, the Resto Chamois from having a heart attack, but he didn't actually take any damage afterwards anyway. But I pressed mass barrier because I saw a lot of the team was low. I think that's something that I definitely need to get better at. It's just kind of sending my barrier for myself on cooldown, which I kind of do anyway, but more so my mass barrier, because I think the mass barrier lasts for 40 seconds. I don't think it's a 60 seconds, but I might be wrong on that. So if I just kind of send it willy-nilly, because we're not in comms, we're not like pre-planning our defensive cooldowns or anything like that, I'm going to be getting a lot more value out of the mass barrier. I think at the moment I've kind of been saving it for those like scary moments, but there's actually not too many of those, and then I just don't get as much value out of my mass barrier. We do the usual massive conscript pull after the second boss. Do some big damage here, considering we're on Arcane as well, so we are deleting that priority mob, but also getting up to 5 million AoE DPS, almost pushing 6 mil. With this group comp, we don't have the most incredible mass AoE. Honestly, I feel like the Guardian Druid probably pumps out the most mass AoE out of all of us, because the enhanced Chamois is capped. I'm pseudo capped and I'm doing a lot of damage into prio mobs, so in a different dungeon, it kind of works for City of Threads, but in a different dungeon, this is definitely not an ideal group comp. I probably should have gone Frost. And it's looking like we're going to time this one so far. We take down the Venom Shell and we get into the last 2 boss room with like 14 minutes to go. Then our tank goes full MDI mode, starts pinging in this little opening here, wants us all to stay in there. Now, I might have trolled a little bit here because the test subject is obviously the mob that I want to send all of my priority damage into. He has got like infinitely more health than all of these other unnaturalers that are with him. The problem is the unstable test subject doesn't move. He just literally does not move. He casts Dark Barrage straight into Fear Stomping and then straight back into Dark Barrage. So like, as you can see here, I'm not really doing anything. And then I actually go around the corner so that I can open on the test subject, but then I'm going to get aggro. I might die, so I think I mass or a greater invis here. But this was just like super awkward for me. If I do my burst rotation on an unnaturaler, it's going to die instantly, so I'm going to get no value from that. So I don't really know how else you could set this up. But that being said, I do think if I just sent my damage into the unnaturalers, then we probably would have survived because they would all be dead. But yeah, I've never done anything or seen this pool before, so that was just me getting used to it. And then not to make excuses for myself, but then after we've killed all the unnaturalers, we're just going to be sat there on the unstable test subject, which is obviously better than wiping and throwing the key like we did here. But yeah, I just don't think it was worth it at all. At this point, the key's pretty much over anyway, I think. I think the mental went boom. Even though that was the first wipe and only deaths of the key, the rest of the key was super clean. I just don't feel like this was necessary right here. Maybe once we're further into the season and people get experience with these kinds of pulls, but like, for now, I think just go slow and steady and we win the key. City of Threads is a really, really lenient timer, so we definitely would have timed it if we just went through at a steady pace. So that is the first deplete of this episode, but as you know, with the Vest video, there is plenty more depletes to come. Moving on to an 11 Grim Patrol here, where we just missed the timer. I don't know actually whether I want to tell you guys if we deplete keys or time them before we actually get to the end of the key, because maybe you guys will skip the depletes, and that's where we learn. So, not a fan of this first pull. Again, playing Arcane here. The patrol was kind of awkward. We pulled it in really late. I should have kicked the back Earth Caller in, but like I'm also trying to save my kick for the Mash Tremors here. Skipping over to the second boss, not much else to report on the way to the first boss and during the first boss. Me and the Ret Pally, we're actually slamming single target here. Surprising from the Ret Pally, he's keeping up with me, an Arcane Mage, at 1.3 mil DPS, so pretty happy with that. And then just after the second boss, kind of awkward. We had all our cooldowns here. Pallies always have their cooldowns up, so I had my cooldowns here, and I just had to kind of sit on them because we did this horrible little cringe 3-pack right here. I felt like we could have chained this into the giant pack just up the stairs, but we did not. Moving over to the second lava bender, the one on the bridge, the Paladin actually gets taken out here. I think just as the Warlock dies, it gets its Shadow Flame Bolt cast off onto the Ret Pally, and then he just ticks out to the Ascension mob, just pulsating damage. I can't remember what, Scorching Heat, I think it's called. And then we get a late Spirit Link Totem just after he's died. Unlucky, but it does happen. Our whole team had all of our kicks up for that cast, but I think that we just assumed that the mob was going to die before the cast actually got off, so minus 15 seconds on the timer. And then we pull another lava bender. God damn, these mobs are horrible. Again, the Pally gets taken out early. I don't actually know what he dies to here. I don't know if he stands in a frontal, because one Shadow Flame Bolt wouldn't kill him. The Resto Shami gets caught in the frontal from the lava bender, so now it really, really is scary. And then I definitely should have killed the Warlock, because we were kind of sustaining ourselves there. I think we would have killed the lava bender and not had 2 more deaths if I had just kicked the Warlock there on the Shadow Flame Bolt. But I was so scared that I was literally just looking at my health bar, I imagine. I think that I was waiting for my health bar to tick down here so that I could health bot, so I wasn't looking at his cast bar. And then once we kind of get back up and the rest of the group runs back, the monk then says GG. And to be honest, I was kind of with him at this point. I thought 6 deaths, yeah, this key's probably out of time. But what I hadn't realized yet was Grim Bateau is very, very forgiving on the timer. We then also had more deaths to the next lava benders. Lava benders were really causing us some big problems in this key. I mean, they are scary, but I think on these last 2 lava benders at the end, we should have definitely marked one and just nuked that one instead. But it looked like the Ret Pally was actually cleaving with Divine Storm, so he phased them both at the same time. And in a key like a level 11, yeah, that is a recipe for disaster. On to some more positive notes with this key. The tank found a really nice position with Valiona once it actually phases into the dragon part of the fight. If you tank it in this wall, good luck, tanks. I have no idea what you're meant to do with dodging the tornadoes and stuff like that in that little crevice, but it basically means that the adds always spawn directly on top of each other. All the tornadoes spawn in there as well. I don't know if they're related to the adds positioning or what, but maybe where the adds spawn. But yeah, this just makes the fight much, much cleaner and a lot easier to play as a ranged DPS, and good luck, tanks and melee. Then moving on to this Corruptor, my burst must have been insane here because the tank had aggro on everything for a couple of seconds, and then I just ripped all of the mutated hatchlings off of them, and then they all just came and killed me. So yeah, I also feel like we should play double Corruptors here always. I don't really know why that isn't already a thing. I mean, it's still early in the season, right? But you have to play double Corruptors later. So why would you not just play them now as well? Because like I feel like you'll get your defensives back, and it just makes the pool much more efficient. I guess the hatchlings are also a problem. You got a lot more debuffs going off if they do die, but if you play it well, I can't see a reason why you wouldn't do that. And then with all the scuffage in that key, see, this is what I mean. We still only missed the timer by about 30 seconds here. So very, very timeable key, even with some deaths, which is a massive problem this season. It feels like as soon as you wipe once in a lot of these keys, the key is just done. GG. Another off-stream key here then. Don't worry, it's a quick one. Another Grim Batol 11. We took it very, very slow, maybe too slow at the start, and then we pull this Overseer. I blow all of my cooldowns into it because we had been doing it so slow so far that I wasn't expecting him to then do this chain pull. And pulled everything in late. All of my damage is already out at this point pretty much. So yeah, we do just end up dying. Very, very weird pull, because he also, when he like semi sort of chained that pull into each other, he then asked for us to bloodlust. So yeah, just very poorly executed, and that is that key over. One more off-stream key before we get into the stream keys. We've got an 11 stone bolt right here. And you know what? This key was going pretty smoothly. We took out Edna, no problems, move on to the Forge Speaker's Wing, do some big AoE pulls. The Shadow Priest and more importantly, the Ret were pumping in here. I was struggling to keep up on damage. I think I just swapped back to Frost now, and I was sort of making my decision that I'm going to be playing Frost like full time. So we're just getting back into the swing of things, and these guys were blasting their socks off. But we get to the wing here, and the tank pings for us to stay. Like, I have no idea what his plan was here. He pings this brazier for us to stay around the corner. I feel like he wanted to pull them back around this corner, but then he doesn't. Then he pulls them into this corner. I'm really not normally a fan of pulling away from the casters here because they just sit and cast, but the tank actually did a nice job with the positioning right round in the corner so that we line of sight all of the caster mobs. But we had just waited literally 20 seconds pinging where we were going to be staying before. So we were all just like, what is going on here? And then he does just end up falling over after we all pop our cooldowns. So yeah, lost a lot of time right here. Probably still timeable though. This threat's damage was nuts, man. He was insane. We all played the Forge Speakers really, really well. I remember being like pretty happy with myself about how we played our defensives, damage, kicks, and all that jazz during this fight. But like, how am I losing on 2 target cleave to a rep paladin? He's sustaining 1.6 mil by the end of the fight. We're doing a light little 1.4, and the Shadow Priest was pumping as well. Then let's jump over to Skarmorak. Probably the scariest boss for me this season at the moment. I don't know if it's just because I don't really understand fully what I'm meant to be pressing defensives on. I think like I'm just mainly meant to be pressing defensives when the shards explode, like if they explode too close to each other. But what I now understand is that if adds are up when the fortified shell goes off, it doesn't explode them. I was always under the impression that you had to kill the ads off before the fortified shell went off because it would explode them all at the same time and you'd die. But it actually just makes the fortified shell bigger. And then obviously you can use defensive during the void discharge channel while the shell is still active, but it's pulsating damage. So for the most part, healers can normally stay on top of it unless you're in this phase for ages. But yeah, this is definitely one of those fights where I just need more practice on it. I just need to play Stone Vault more. I feel like it's one of my least run dungeons this season. Then we're going into the last wing with 7 minutes left. I'm pretty confident this was already a deplete at this point. We've had 7 deaths throughout the key. We wasted a lot of time on that weird pull that the tank did on the Forge Speaker's wing. And I actually do end up getting taken out by a shield stampede. Not happy with myself here. I was like, this is the main thing that I'm looking out for when we're doing this big pull because there are so many shield stampedes always going out. So you're just constantly looking for blue lines. To be fair, the big dude was in the way of it for a little bit. And then just as he popped to the side, it was nearing the end of the cast of the shield stampede. I saw it last second, but by that point, it was too late. But yeah, I mean, I think this was depleted anyway. Let's move on to some stream keys then so you guys can see my lovely face. Actually, before we jump into the first key, I like to show you guys my vault on this series now, don't I? So we actually ended up getting myth track shoulders that we catalyzed straight into myth tier shoulders. So really nice vault from this week. And now we are up to 623 eye level. I feel like gearing is super slow in this season. I don't like the max gear that we're gonna all end up being like 638, aren't we? But we're still all stuck at like, even at this point in the season, we're stuck around like 625-ish. So we got still so much eye level to gain, which I guess is just gonna make key pushing an even longer marathon. But let's finally time a key, shall we? We've got a Grim Batol plus 10 right here. This is weird because this is like a week behind what we're currently at right now. So a plus 10 feels kind of low to me. But because this is on a reset, this is also the first week that we're playing with the Devour Xalatath affix. So I'm getting used to in this key pressing my remove curse. Definitely wasn't doing a great job of it. But there's a lot that I need to dispel in this dungeon in particular because we got the Enveloping Shadows and we also have the Devour affix too. This actually wasn't the cleanest key, but we do end up timing it. It is only in inverted commas a plus 10, but it is also a Grim Batol. So we do actually end up wiping at the start to the big pool. Normally we don't play all of the Earth Callers at the same time. We leave the 2 on the back left until we've killed one of the other Earth Callers so that we don't have an insane amount of kicks going off. But regardless of the wipes, me and Satino were blasting during this key. Hey, we ain't letting no wipes deplete our keys. We're making sure that our damage is enough to compensate. And there was a few deaths here and there throughout the key, nothing really to learn from, so let's just skip to the end. And even though it was kind of scuffed, we finished this dungeon with 5 minutes left. See? That is a forgiving dungeon right there. We did also get diffed by Satino on the overall too. He's doing a 2 million overall basically. We get 3 score out of this key, taking us up to 2664. So I don't know if we had actually already timed a +10 Grim Baton. Maybe we just did it faster? I can't remember. I've run so many keys at this point. Now we're going to run up a +11 Necrotic Wake. Still sticking with Satino. Satino's one of the viewers. He is a blaster rogue. I think he was like 3.7 in Dragonflight or something stupid like that. But unfortunately, he does have the Outlaw debuff. He thoroughly enjoys Outlaw. And to be fair, I don't blame him. It's my favorite rogue spec as well. But Outlaw is very, very target capped. So in this Necrotic Wake, we actually end up doing a smaller pool to compensate for him. Because if we pull like 20 mobs at the start and Bloodlust it all, he's only going to be hitting 8 of them. So I'm going to have to do all of the hard work with the big AoE damage. And I don't know if Frost can do that in this key level. I don't know if I have the amount of AoE damage to compensate for Satino only hitting 8 of the mobs. But I mean, like, it's not the end of the world. It slows down the key a tiny bit, but it's definitely not the reason that we deplete this key. During the first pull, though, I mean, I didn't realize it at the time, but it didn't seem like the healer was maybe pumping that much healing out. We all died to the Wrath of Zolramus. It kind of felt like we were sat on like 60% health for a little bit. Then he kind of topped us up, and then the Wrath of Zolramus came. I popped Greater Invis and still just completely ticked down through it. And then we also had like 3 other deaths at the same time. So yeah, not sure what was going on there. Skipping over to the double Marauder and Necromancer pool. Yes, it can be done. In the last video, people were commenting like, bro, how are you going to play 2 Marauders with the Necromancer pack? That's impossible. Hey, listen guys, it's possible and it's needed in higher keys, okay? Because otherwise you're wasting so much time just killing 2 mobs. But Satino does actually die quite early on during this pool, so it makes it even scarier, but we still do style it out. So that proves that this pool is doable to all of you guys that haven't experienced it yet. I think Satino ended up standing in a gruesome cleave. And I don't know, now that Satino's dead, obviously it's just me and the Org left, so this pack is going to live a long time because the Org doesn't do as much damage as a normal DPS would. And also it's not prio damage like we need. We need to be turreting down this Necromancer. But at the same time, I don't know if we do live this pool without having an Org because of the amount of stops and utility that the Org brings. Because this, like 9 out of 10 times, is going to end up in a wipe if somebody dies early in this pool because there's so many kicks, so much outgoing damage, so many stops needed. We do even let a fear go off as well, and we still survive. But it is just all about getting this Necromancer down. Like, we just need it to die, and then it's free. Once it's 2 Marauders, we're absolutely fine. Like, yeah, we're going to lose a lot of time still, but it's all about getting that Necromancer down. So I think every single piece of AoE CC was used during that pool to stop the Frostbolt volleys going off, stop the Frostbolts going off, kicks on the Necrotic Bolts, but more importantly, the Rasping Screams. And we do manage to style it out. Then I think after this, we were maybe panicking a little bit because we had lost so much time. So we called to Lust on this pack, which we've never... Yeah, of course, it speeds up the pack, but we've never had an issue with killing this pack. I don't think we've ever wiped on this pack. So I personally think you should just save Lust for Amarth and the last boss, because Amarth actually has become quite a bit of a big problem in the keys that I've been doing in Necrotic Wake. Speaking of, here comes a death to Amarth. Again, just like look at our HP here. Like, it is just not being healed back up, and I'm not really sure why. I think I actually end up standing in the swirly, so like that's not the reason for my death. But Seb procs his cheap death here, and then I do die just before the ads all spawn. I think my right pinky toe was just stood in that swirly. So that's on me. I should have been more aware. I don't know if I just didn't see it or what was going on, because I've still got 2 blink charges. So that is an L from Vesp. And then the final harvest does go off with 2 mobs on like bloody 3% HP. But what I've realized you can do now is if you hard CC these mobs as the final harvest cast finishes, then it won't actually count as them still being alive and they won't blow up and kill the whole group. Also, it looks like the healer got a bit ahead of himself here. Instead of killing the ads and making sure they're finished off, he seems to be CRing me as the final harvest is finishing. So, I mean, obviously, if I was up, if I didn't stand in that swirly, then the ads would have been long dead. But it's also something that I'm going to be thinking about in future keys. If there are still ads up for whatever reason, then I'm going to Dragon's Breath them at the last second. And you could also have like a kidney shot from the rogue or a cheap shot from the rogue as the final harvest cast finishes, and then you won't wipe. But that's that key done. Another Necrotic Wake depleted to Amarth. Now let's move on to a +11 Stony V, and we actually do time this one. Holy moly, the second key timed in this episode. Did some outrageous pumping on the first pull. We're hitting 6 mil and sustaining 6 mil here. And we're even dispelling ourselves at the same time. Holy, who is this mage, bro? I'm still figuring out Edna as well. I figured it out now, but I was always very, very scared of the Earth Shatterer. But I only need to be scared of Earth Shatterer if there's still spikes up. And even then, like, it's when 2 spikes are still up with the Earth Shatterer that it becomes scary, not necessarily 1. I can just live it with a barrier and probably a rescue from Seb with the Earth Shatterer, but I was actually at this point still pressing defensives on Earth Shatterer. Any Earth Shatterers in chat? Then we do actually end up, we do the double pull after Edna, and we do actually end up almost wiping to this pull. I don't know why, this Despoiler's AoE pulse always just catches me off guard, and it shouldn't, so I need to be more prepared with defensives. I didn't actually have any up, bar my ice barrier, which I should have already had on myself. But there is a lot going on in this pull. You've got the big AoE pulsing from the Despoiler. I've got to be removing all the curses. We've got the Affix spawning at the same time. Of course, we've got to do big damage, most importantly. And the same goes for this next pull. To this day, I still have not figured out what to do with this pull. Like, there is just an insane amount of kicks needed. We've got the censoring gears. Piercing whales are going to start one-shotting if multiple of them go off because they increase the damage you take from future piercing whales, so they need to be stopped. You've got the void infection curses going out, which I need to be dispelling, as well as the chamois. So there's lots of AoE CC to be doing here. I've got my Dragon's Breath off cooldown, my Blast Wave off cooldown. I'm kicking where I can. I mean, censoring gear, if that goes on the healer, that's going to be a wipe. But if it goes on me, then yeah, it's annoying, but it's not the end of the world. So I normally try and save my kicks for the piercing whales. And then, after all of that, I then have to pump damage because the pack needs to die. Otherwise, we're just going to die anyway. And yeah, I didn't really do that. I just get so overwhelmed with this pool, and I'm still so overwhelmed with this pool that I never do any damage on it. I mean, I don't have my cooldowns up normally for it, so I can use that excuse to an extent, but I definitely should be doing more damage. And although the key had been scary at points here, we were feeling very confident. Like, this was a clean run so far. And I think we got a little bit overconfident in the Forge Speaker's wing. So we did the standard big pull with the loader at the start of the Forge Speaker's wing. And I think Relly just got a little bit overconfident and chain pulled it into the Mender pack. We did have cooldowns here, so I mean, it definitely could have been done. Maybe he just needed to kite out a little bit earlier because we do have the Frost Mage, so he is able to do that. And that actually does end up saving us from a complete wipe here because everything is so slow that we end up just kiting back to the start, and then Relly can pick up all the aggro on all of the mobs again, and we do end up finishing it. We lost a lot of time here, don't get me wrong, but at least it's not a full wipe where we lose all of the time to deaths as well as resetting all of the mobs. So we did well to kind of salvage this pool, I think. Then holy moly, we absolutely destroyed the Forge Speakers, finishing this fight on 1.8 mil DPS. Holy. And Satino keeping up on the Outlaw Rogue as well. But I feel like that's even more impressive. We almost end up wiping at the very end because we did just kill Brock just before Dorlita. But I did pop my ice block just to make sure that we didn't. And then moving on to the last boss. Comfy on the time here, starting the last boss with 7 minutes left. And I didn't realize this is what Seb was doing at the time, but he's actually, when the Void Corruption debuff is going out, so basically Void Corruption goes out on everybody in the party and you go next to the portals and the portal will suck the debuff off of you because that debuff increases in damage and will kill you eventually. But apparently, Augmentation Evokers can rescue people into the, or not into the portal because that'll kill you, but rescue people near the portal. And because you're traveling at the exact same speed in the exact same location, the portal will suck the debuff off of the both of you. So that's super, super efficient and some tech for you guys to learn. Then we do end up finishing this key with around 4 minutes left, which is kind of low-key impressive. On a plus 11, we get 13 score out of this, taking us up to 2677. Back to Grim Batol then. Let's try and break the curse. Let's try and time this bad boy. So we did this big pull at the start again so that we can get Lust on calls down ASAP. And we played this pull a lot nicer. For whatever reason, the patrolling Earthcaller just ran straight into the pack without needing any kicks on it. So that was very nice. Again, going to be using my Alter Time for the Umbral Wind so that I can just pretty much stand wherever I want. I also popped an Ice Block here because there was a lot of damage going out. I was scared that the Umbral Wind was going to kill me. And then we just Alter Time back down so that we can continue to pump DPS. And then I will line of sight the later Umbral Winds. A little bit sketch on the first boss. I ran out of blinks. I feel like I want to get one of those no shimmer weak auras so that I know when I don't have any blinks because I'm not always looking down at my blink charges. I popped the Greater Invis just in case it was going to hit me. I feel like that would actually save me. I feel like it has saved me before because I've definitely been in this situation before. But I do actually manage to get to the safe zone just before the dragon does fly through. Then sheesh, in the second area, the first pack, I always try and use my alter time on this first molten wake that goes off. My God, were we pumping here? I don't even really know why we were pumping so much here. We did get 2 Frozen Orb resets, so it might have been that, but it's only a 4-pack, so I feel like, yeah, Frozen Orb's going to be doing a lot of damage, but only 2 Frozen Orb resets isn't that much. But I mean, hey, I ain't complaining. So, yeah, this key went pretty smooth. I think we had a few deaths to Lava Benders. I think the healer thought he had a little bit longer than he did, and a few of us died. But we get onto the last boss with 5.5 minutes left, so plenty of time to be timing this plus 11 key, right? There shouldn't be any failures from this point onwards. But wait, the boss is at 30% health. I mean, to be fair, look at all those tentacles in the middle. Like, that is just a shit show in there. The Shadow Gale comes in, and I guess 3 of us just decided that it wasn't going to where it was going. And yeah, we all just ran into the Shadow Gale and died. I think Sestino Shadow Step to Relentless. I was sort of half following Relentless, but I also thought it was going to a different location than it was. And we throw the key on the last boss at like 20% HP. I don't think any of us could actually believe what we had just done. I just thought that Shadow Gale was closing in on a different place than it was. I don't know how I misjudged the circle closing in so badly, but my God, what a throw. Like, that might be worse than Summit 1G standing in his own Molotov. But we were not letting that defeat us. The random Resto Druid, who was a good player, by the way, he had a plus 11 Grim Batol. And even after that, he trusted us with his key. Because to be fair, the rest of the key was pretty smooth. But because the last key went smooth and we threw it at the end, this key had to be very scuffed throughout the whole dungeon. You know, that's how that kind of works. So we took a pull just before the second boss where we bring in like 3 or 4 flame renders and 2 earth coolers. So this is a very scary pack for the tank, sorry. I think to be fair, he said that he was playing for damage, and the one global that he played for damage, he got him killed basically. And then we ran back to keep ourselves in combat with the mobs so that we could keep their HP low. And it turns out that they can Shadow Flame Slash across the map. So we got killed again and lost even more time from that because deaths are so punishing now. Blizzard, please change Challenger's Peril. Nobody likes it. Thank you. And again, kind of thought the key was over at this point. We'd had 7 deaths and we weren't even at the second boss yet. But we keep marching on. And this time, it was your boy's time to throw, okay? Well, we got the flame render right here, which does his frontal. I did actually see the frontal the last second, and I thought I'd stepped back far enough that I wasn't in the way of it anymore, because I ran in to shatter my Comet Storm with Frost Nova, and it did cost me my life. So, whatever, it happens, move on, run back on over. I mean, if standing in the Shadow Gale in the last key hadn't already made my mental go boom, the amount of deaths and scuffage, and then my death to that frontal definitely made my mental go boom. And then a full Seer Mind gets channeled on me in this next pack. We got 2 kicks off of cooldown and probably a whole host of stops off of cooldown as well. And it doesn't get stopped, and then I get frontaled again. You can't write it. So at this point, I mean, probably long before this, I was already very mentally checked out of this key. In this dungeon, though, we do actually end up playing the double Corruptors at the start down the stairs. And I think that is just a massive time save. If you don't have any deaths to it and people use their defensives on the corrupt channels, then why not do it? And then at this point, we realized that we could time the key again, because I think we had all given up. We start on Eridax with around 4 minutes left, and we send Eridax home with just under 2 minutes left. So we still got 2 minutes free on the timer there, which is kind of insane for how badly we scuffed that key. But we get 12 points out of that, taking us up to 2,689. And then the final key for this episode, we're going to run up an 11 City of Threads again. We're going to try and time this one. This was late at night. Me and Seb were just queuing for random keys because we were bored. We finally got ourselves into this rogues group. And then when we got into the group, now, hey, listen, this isn't me being elitist, okay? Seb whispered me saying, why are we in this group, basically? Because the rogue score wasn't too high. He was 2.2. But score isn't the deciding factor on how good a player is. I've seen plenty of players that have lower score and they just haven't played much that season, so they're still actually very, very good players. And to be honest, when you're queuing into keys, you take what you're given. So we gave it a whirl, but I probably should have listened to Seb and just saved myself the time. I thought the rogue died on the first pull, but if you look at the mini-map on the first pull, what is the rogue up to? I actually cannot figure out what the rogue is up to. He just like runs away from the pack. I don't know, maybe he was in the wrong spec and realized and he was on his way out, but then he like sort of double backs on himself, then gets the Ravenous Swarm, procs his cheat death from that, and then runs back out the key just after we pulled like the entirety of the first area. So maybe we do look at the score on this one. Then while waiting for the rogue to make an appearance in the dungeon, let's say, we do this weird waiting for this swarm guard to patrol over, and we just fight a silk binder by itself for like 20 seconds. So at this point, I think me and Seb are telepathically saying like, yeah, okay, what are we doing in this key, buddy? Skip over to the first boss, because I'm like, you guys know that this key is not going to go well, right? I actually do end up getting hit by the orbs. It's something I've figured out since, but at the time I was having a real hard time with this boss. Like, I just could not figure out how to actually see where the orbs are coming from. But I've now realized it's just all about positioning. If you do a nice even spread around the boss as the DPS and healer, then it makes the orbs a lot easier to dodge. Also, it does look like the healer just wasn't dispelling them here. So, I don't, like, can Resto Chamois not dispel those? They must be able to, right? But it always seems like it's Resto Chamois that aren't dispelling them. And then, just after that, the rogue gets caught in the vociferous indoctrination. Smash that first time. No cuts on the edits. And he just instantly dies for that. I mean, that puddle hits so hard, you cannot get caught in that puddle. So, yeah. Honestly, though, we're so desperate for keys that we just keep on cracking on. I think this is the third Eye of the Queen that we get to here, and just before we pull it, the rogue gets web wrapped. Might give him the benefit of the doubt here. It happened to me earlier in the episode where I got absolutely cheated by the mob seeing me when I was not inside the circle. But I mean, after the rest of this key, maybe the rogue did just stand in it. Then the rogue finally makes it back to the pack after we pulled it and instantly dies again. Oh, bless him. I don't like to put people on blast, so it happens, you know. Maybe people have a bad key. I have no idea what was going on that first pull, though. Like, the fact that he just runs out of the instance after we've done a massive pull. Like, even if you're the wrong talents there, right, you play that pack so that you can at least contribute and help your group kill the mobs. So very interesting key, and I think after maybe even the first pull, me and Seb had realized what we'd gotten ourselves into. So that's where we're going to leave it for this episode. We managed to get ourselves very close to 2.7, 2,689 score is where we're going to leave it for this one. Definitely hit 2.7 in the next episode, and maybe even more. If you guys are enjoying this series, then feel free to drop a like down below. I might even start uploading this 2 times a week. It's not something that I'm going to commit to long term. I mean, maybe I will, who knows, but I'm just really enjoying keys right now, and I don't want to get too far behind with the keys. So if you guys want more episodes a week, then let me know down in the comments as well. Subscribe to your boy if you're new, and until next time, I'll catch you guys later.